On the edge of the Montana frontier, where the wind carried both yesterday's sorrows and tomorrow's fragile hopes, Evelyn Hart stumbled barefoot toward the old homestead, her dress soaked, heavy with rain and rejection. The townsfolk had cast her out again, whispering names she didn't deserve, claiming she wasn't the kind for decent society, though they'd never cared to know her heart. She had no family, no future, and no roof, but the scant-till the creaking sound of wagon wheels approached, and a man stepped down. Tall and solemn, wearing a rain-soaked duster and a face shaped by grief and grit, Caleb Warren, known across counties as the widower cowboy who never smiled anymore, stood looking at her with a quiet kind of understanding. And beside him, in his wagon, sat two trembling girls clutching each other's hands. Evelyn froze when Caleb knelt in the mud before her as though she were someone worthy of gentleness. His voice, deep yet warm, as he said, "Miss, I need a mother for my girls, and you need shelter. Let's save each other." It wasn't a proposal born of romance, but of necessity, a bridge between two broken worlds. Yet the sincerity in his eyes unsettled something long buried in Evelyn's chest. She wanted to run. She wanted to believe. She wanted to collapse into the mud and sob from the exhaustion of a life that had never offered her a choice. But the girls, Lydia, timid with wide blue eyes, and Ruth, clutching a rag doll worn to threads, stared at her with a desperate hope she had never seen directed toward her, as if she were a miracle they'd been praying for. Evelyn swallowed her fear and whispered, "Why? Why me?" Caleb's answer came without hesitation, "Because you know what loneliness feels like. And because I can see you're kind." Those words shattered something inside her, because no one had ever named her kindness before. Yet she shook her head, backing toward the porch beam of the abandoned cabin she'd taken shelter near. "People talk, Mr. Warren. They say I'm no good." Caleb stood slowly, eyes steady beneath dripping hat brim. "People talk because they need to feel tall standing on someone else's back. I don't listen to gossip. I look at truth." He gestured gently toward his daughters. "And the truth is, my girls cry at night. They need someone who knows how to hold hurt carefully." Evelyn hesitated as the rain washed mud over her ankles like a baptism of second chances. She had dreamed once, long ago, of a family, but life had taught her dreams were luxuries reserved for others. Still, something about this man, this family, pulled her like gravity. With trembling fingers, she touched her chest. "If I agree, I can't promise I'll be enough." Caleb stepped closer, his voice softer than the rain. "I ain't asking for perfection. I'm asking for someone who tries." With that, he extended his hand not as a master to a servant, not as a man rescuing a fallen woman, but as a partner, inviting her into a life built for mutual need and fragile hope. Evelyn looked at his hand for what felt like eternity before placing her own inside it. A spark of warmth shot through her cold skin, startling her. The girls' faces brightened instantly, as if clouds had parted just for them. "Will you come home with us, Miss Evelyn?" little Ruth asked. Evelyn blinked away tears she didn't know she'd allowed to fall. "If you'll have me." Ruth nodded eagerly, while Lydia whispered, "Mama used to sing to us." "Do you sing?" The question was a knife and a healing balm all at once. Evelyn couldn't remember the last time anyone had wanted anything from her besides silence or disappearance. She nodded gently. "I can learn." And for the first time in months, Caleb smiled, a small, fragile thing, but real enough to warm the rain-chilled air. He helped Evelyn climb into the wagon, careful with her torn dress. And as the wheels rolled forward through the muddy trail, she watched the cabin fade behind the man-empty place she'd nearly died in, but would now leave as a new beginning dawned. Caleb kept glancing at her shyly, as though unsure if he'd done something foolish or sacred. The girls leaned against her, trusting her far too quickly, and her heart squeezed painfully but sweetly. As they journeyed toward the Warren Ranch, the storm broke into a gentle drizzle, revealing streaks of pale gold sunlight pushing through the clouds. A sign, she dared to think, that perhaps God had not forgotten her after all. At the ranch, the house stood worn but welcoming, with a rocking chair on the porch and a stable full of horses that lifted their heads as the wagon approached. Caleb helped the girls down, then offered Evelyn his hand again, not because she needed help this time, but because he wanted her to know she was no burden. Inside, she found a warm fire crackling and blankets folded with care. Caleb shifted awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "There's chores and long days ahead," he admitted. "This life ain't easy." Evelyn stepped toward the fire, feeling heat seep into her bones. "Hard work doesn't scare me," she whispered. "Being unwanted does." Caleb's brows knit as he stepped beside her. "You won't be unwanted here." The girls nodded fiercely, one on each side of her, and Evelyn felt something like roots beginning to grow beneath her feet. That night, while Caleb put the horses away, Evelyn helped the girls wash up and tuck them into bed, singing softly though her voice trembled. The girls clung to her hand until sleep took them, and Evelyn sat for a long moment staring at their peaceful faces, wondering how she had ever been so close to giving up entirely. When she stepped onto the porch, Caleb was leaning against the railing, watching the stars begin to blink through the clearing sky. He looked at her with the gentleness of a man who'd known unbearable loss and was terrified of hoping again. "Thank you," he murmured. Evelyn shook her head. "You saved me today." Caleb looked down shyly. Maybe we saved each other. Evelyn breathed deeply, tasting freedom, safety, and the beginning of a family she'd never believed she deserved. And as the breeze carried the scent of wet earth and wildflowers, she realized that perhaps, just perhaps, the widower cowboy's proposal wasn't born of desperation at all. Maybe it was destiny knocking softly after years of silence. Asterisk,